Chapter 647. During this period, Guo Qixing and Jiang Mui made several calls, but Ningxi's cell phone was still turned off. They finally became anxious and began to ask the receptionist if they had seen Ningxi. After learning that no one had noticed her, they asked to check the surveillance video. The process of retrieving the surveillance video in the hotel was a bit complicated. When they saw the video, it was already night time. The surveillance video showed that Ningxi did sleep as soon as she arrived at the hotel last night. She didn't go out at all until the next morning. And she hadn't come back since she went out in the morning. What happened? Where did she go? She hasn't come back yet. Jiang Mui frowned. She didn't look like she went out to play according to her clothes in the surveillance video. Besides, it was still early in the morning when she went out. Guo Qixing paced back and forth, looking worried. The security in some places of Country X is not very good. Although Dib City is good, the surrounding places are not. Did Ningxi leave Dib City? Didn't she tell you yesterday where she would go today? Jiang Mui shook his head. Nothing. She didn't even go to the bar. She said she would come back to sleep. The two began to look for her at noon. However, there was still no news from Ningxi until late at night. At the same time, in a commercial cocktail party in the capital, Lu Tingxiao, dressed in a black suit, stood in front of the large floor-to-ceiling window, looking a bit absent-minded. Behind him, Mo Lingtian walked over and put a hand on his shoulder, as if he couldn't stand it anymore. Hey, hey, hey. What are you thinking about? Why are you always absent-minded recently? You don't drink at the cocktail party, but now you don't even bring your soul with you. As soon as he finished speaking, Mo Lingtian noticed that the screen of Lu Tingxiao's cell phone was still on. The next second, he looked as if he was about to go blind. Shit. Hot. Hot. What the hell is this? Lu Tingxiao, have you taken the wrong medicine? Lu Tingxiao glanced at his friend next to him with a cold face. It seemed that his friend's words had insulted the screen of his cell phone. On Lu Tingxiao's phone, there was a picture of Ningxi, Xiaobao, and him, a family of 3. In the photo, the 3 of them made a cute gesture with their hands against their cheeks. Xiaobao was silly and cute, Ningxi was smiling very brightly, and Lu Tingxiao was expressionless, but his eyes were full of tenderness and doting. There were a lot of messy stickers on their faces, and each of them had a pair of pink cat ears on their heads. If there were only Xiaobao and Ningxi, this picture would be quite cute, but with the expressionless Lu Tingxiao, the whole picture looked extremely weird. Therefore, it was no wonder that Mo Lingtian's eyes were hurting. What the fuck? How could they film such a thing? I really have to give it to you. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that you were possessed. Lu Tingxiao completely ignored his friend's complaints. He clicked on Ningxi's WeChat and sent her a message. Have you got off the plane? If she wasn't late, Ningxi's flight should arrive at the airport at this time. Because of a social engagement, he couldn't pick her up in person. After Lu Tingxiao sent the message, there was no response from the other end of the phone. After a while, his cell phone suddenly rang. He thought it was Ningxi, but the caller ID showed that it was Jiang Mui. Chapter 648. Hello, Uncle. Jiang Mui sounded very excited. What's the matter? A man's deep voice came from the other end of the phone. It was noisy on the other end. It seemed that they were at a business party. Jiang Mui didn't dare to keep it a secret anymore. After all, he was not familiar with the people and places abroad. If Lu Tingxiao could help him, it would be much more convenient with his connections. So he directly said, Uncle, Ningxi is missing. She has been missing for a whole day. I called the police, but the police only found that she went into Feiqing. I don't know what happened in Feiqing. All the surveillance cameras are malfunctioning, and we can't find any information. I was going to go there, but I was told that the city was under martial law. I'm worried about Ningxi. In the luxurious banquet hall, under the shining crystal lights, the man in a black suit, holding a phone in his hand. His whole body seemed to be wrapped in ice. The night sky outside the huge floor-to-ceiling windows showed that his face was covered with frost. What did you say? Feiqing. Didn't Ningxi go to Dib to promote the film? Why did she go to Feiqing? Mo Lingtian shivered and rubbed his arms. Lu Tingxiao, What's wrong with you? Why do you look so pale? I want to know the identity of that person before tomorrow. After saying this, Lu Tingxiao's frosty figure left the banquet hall without a backward glance. Fuck. Tomorrow. I can't find enough time for you even if I have to risk my life. Mo Lingtian cursed behind him. But judging from Lu Tingxiao's attitude, it seemed that something big had happened. Mo Lingtian didn't dare to delay any longer and immediately went back to work. 10 minutes later. In the night sky, on a helicopter. Lu Tingxiao had a black laptop on his lap, and he looked like a storm was brewing. Sure enough, the entire network in Feicheng was paralyzed, as if someone was trying to cover something up. After more than half an hour, he finally found some intermittent scenes. Although it was just a few short scenes, it was enough to scare him out of his wit. He saw that Ningxi was surrounded and chased by a group of people. In the last second, Ningxi was shot. Lu Tingxiao's voice even began to tremble. Go to Feicheng. When Cheng Feng saw the surveillance footage on the computer, his face was filled with horror. When he heard Lu Tingxiao's words, he suddenly came to his senses and said anxiously, Boss, the entire Philadelphia is in chaos now. It's too dangerous to go there now. Just as he finished speaking, Lu Tingxiao gave him an extremely frightening look. Cheng Feng could only shut his mouth. Oh no, please don't let anything happen to Lady Boss. Otherwise, Lu Tingxiao had no idea how he had survived the last few seconds. It was as if he had walked through hell. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again 3 seconds later, they were as deep as a bottomless abyss, without the slightest ripple. He took out his phone and dialed a number. Minister Naka, sorry to disturb you so late at night. Mr. Lu, my honorable guest, calling so late at night. Is there something urgent? The tone on the other end of the phone was quite friendly. I do have a favor to ask. Oh, Mr. Lu, feel free to speak your mind. I want to borrow an army from the minister. What? This. He didn't expect Lu Tingxiao to make such a scary request as soon as he opened his mouth. The other party was immediately scared out of his sleep. Mr. Lu, what happened? I need to go to Feicheng. Sir, you must not. Feicheng is controlled by a group of Italian mafia during this period of time. Even if there is something urgent, please wait for the situation to stabilize. My wife is in those people's hands. Chapter 649. My wife is in those people's hands. Hearing Lu Tingxiao's words, the minister on the other end of the phone was shocked. What? These people are simply audacious. Lu Tingxiao was one of the important investors of Country X. He was inextricably linked to the government of Country X. Now his wife was actually kidnapped in Country X. If something happened, then the consequences. However, the situation in Philadelphia was complicated. A slight change in one part could affect the whole situation. Most importantly, there was only half a year left before the change of office. He just wanted to be an official for half a year and did not want to fight for any achievements. Who knew that such a thing would happen? Lu Tingxiao naturally had his concerns tomorrow. Minister, don't worry, I will try my best to solve the problem peacefully. Try your best. That means you can't rule out the possibility of solving it by force. The minister broke out in a cold sweat. However, this person had to be saved. At the border of Country X, the night was illuminated, and a loud rumbling sound rang out. Above the void, a helicopter slowly descended. The cabin door opened, and Lu Tingxiao, dressed in a black suit, walked out of the helicopter, followed by Cheng Feng. Because the incident happened suddenly, he got on the plane as soon as he received the call, without anyone by his side. In this remote place, a white-haired old man had been waiting for a long time. Seeing Lu Tingxiao appear, the old man shook hands with Lu Tingxiao with a smile and said, Mr. Lu, I didn't expect such a thing to happen. Please allow me to apologize first. Lu Tingxiao was quite polite. Minister Naka, I'm very sorry to disturb you so late at night. If it was a normal day, he would never easily trouble this minister, because it was not a good thing to be too involved with the government. But now, Ningxi's life and death were unknown, and the matter was urgent, so he couldn't care too much. Minister Naka sighed. Recently, Philadelphia has been controlled by the Italian mafia. Although our ministry has the intention to suppress it, the current situation in Country X is also relatively tense, so we haven't had time to deal with it yet. I never thought that Mr. Lu's wife would suddenly appear in Philadelphia, and even this kind of thing happened. Lu Tingxiao was a Chinese business giant who controlled the economic lifeline. At the same time, he was also an important investor in Country X. He had a great relationship with the government, and the government of Country X also valued Lu Tingxiao very much. This was not only in Country X. It was said that Lu Tingxiao had a large number of investments in several countries, and his strength was extremely strong. He was not a simple businessman. Otherwise, as a dignified department head, he wouldn't have to be so nervous and come to pick them up in the middle of the night. If something happened to Lu Tingxiao's beloved wife in Philadelphia, he wouldn't be able to keep his face. If this incident caused Lu Tingxiao to resent Country X and withdraw his investment, or even cause other disputes, this matter was indeed difficult to handle. Cheng Feng quietly followed behind Lu Tingxiao. His hands did not stop as he continued to search for Ningxi's tracks. Although Country X was a relatively barren small country, it could not be compared with a medium-sized country, and it could not be compared with a large country, but it also had a sizable regular army. Especially the recent outbreak of war between Country X and some other small countries, many powerful merchants from various countries also saw the strength of Country X. However, although the strength of the X team was not small, the economic aspect was a headache, especially after the outbreak of the war. They needed money to support it. The economic construction of Country X was insufficient, so they especially valued business giants like Lu Tingxiao. Chapter 650. Minister Naka, there's no need to be polite. Right now, my wife's life and death in Philadelphia are unknown. I need to borrow a regular army. Lu Tingxiao's expression seemed calm, but if one observed carefully, they would discover a terrifying undercurrent at the bottom of his eyes. Mr. Lu, I think you also know that the war in Country X is currently tense. If it's a regular army. Minister Naka looked hesitant to speak. What Minister Naka means is. Lu Tingxiao looked at the old man in front of him meaningfully. It's like this, Mr. Lu. Country X currently has some more important investment projects, and these projects are linked to the military. If Mr. Lu is willing to invest, I think it won't be a problem to immediately mobilize a regular army for Mr. Lu. I just wonder how Lu Xian's business is. Minister Naka secretly sized up Lu Tingxiao's attitude. Cheng Feng frowned slightly. Minister Naka was obviously taking advantage of the situation. Lu Tingxiao looked at Minister Naka and said in a cold tone, Minister Naka, I'm not in the mood to talk business with you right now. Then this is not easy to do. It may take some time to mobilize the regular army. Minister Naka said again, deliberately putting on a difficult expression. All right. Lu Tingxiao nodded. Hearing Lu Tingxiao's words, Minister Naka was delighted. However, Lu Tingxiao's next words caused Minister Naka's expression to change. Since that's the case, then withdraw all my previous investments in Country X. After that, I might go to Country X to look for projects to invest in. After Lu Tingxiao finished speaking, he did not even look at Minister Naka. He brought Cheng Feng and turned around to walk towards the helicopter. Sir, please wait immediately. Minister Naka quickly chased after Lu Tingxiao and anxiously stopped him. Originally, he thought that Lu Tingxiao would agree to further investment in his heart. However, he did not expect that Lu Tingxiao would not buy his account at all. If Lu Tingxiao really withdrew his investment in Country X, he was afraid that the higher-ups would blame him, and he would not be able to get any benefits. Mr. Lu, what I said before is just a matter of the future. Our top priority is to get Mr. Lu's wife out of Philadelphia, isn't that so? Minister Naka hurriedly said after stopping Lu Tingxiao. What about the regular army? Lu Tingxiao looked at Minister Naka with an ice-cold gaze. Then let's do this. How about we assign a team of 300 people to Mr. Lu? Minister Naka seemed to be asking for Lu Tingxiao's opinion. 300. Lu Tingxiao narrowed his eyes. He had no idea what the current situation in Philadelphia was. It was a place where crooks and honest people mixed together. Putting aside the Italian mafia, It was still unknown whether there were other forces. Only 300 people was not enough. If 300 people could solve the problem, why would he go through so much trouble? He could have just brought his own men. Why would he look for him, the minister? Then 400 people? Seeing Lu Tingxiao's expression, Minister Naka asked again. However, Lu Tingxiao continued to stare at him without saying a word. Naka was a little anxious. He rubbed his hands and said, "Mr. Lu, what do you think? 20 tanks and 5 fighter jets. Apart from the pilots of the fighter jets and tanks, another 500 people equipped with light and heavy weapons," Lu Tingxiao said calmly. The moment Lu Tingxiao finished speaking, Minister Naka's face was sluggish and he almost cursed. 20 battle tanks, 5 fighter jets, and 500 people equipped with light and heavy weapons. This Lu Tingxiao's tone was really too big. Why didn't he go and rob? The nearest military stronghold didn't have 20 battle tanks and 5 fighter jets. Even if they did, they couldn't be sent out casually. No. Absolutely not. This is definitely not possible. Minister Naka seemed a little excited and said no. Since it's not possible, then I have nothing to say. Goodbye. Lu Tingxiao shook his head. Mr. Lu. Minister Naka said, "Mr. Lu, your request is too much. The nearest military stronghold only has 5 tanks and 2 fighter jet. Even if we want to mobilize, we can only mobilize these. Deal?" Lu Tingxiao nodded. What? Minister Naka still had some reaction. He seemed to have fallen into Lu Tingxiao's trap. The dignified Minister Naka of Country X had been in politics for half his life, and in the end, he was set up by a businessman. Chapter 651. Lu Tingxiao was well versed in the psychology of negotiation. First, he presented a request that the other party could not possibly agree to. Then, he proposed what he really wanted. That was much easier. At that moment, Minister Naka was a little helpless. 5 battlefield tanks, plus 2 fighter jets, equipped with 300 fully armed regular troops, these forces are enough to flatten Philadelphia. Mr. Lu, is there any problem? Yes, Lu Tingxiao replied. Looking at Minister Naka's resentful expression, Lu Tingxiao said, "Minister Naka, don't worry. If all the losses are caused, I will compensate you. Moreover, as I said before, I will try my best to resolve it peacefully." I'm relieved to hear that, Mr. Lu. Please. Minister Naka ordered his men to open the cabin door. He boarded the helicopter with Lu Tingxiao and headed toward the nearest military fortress. Philadelphia. Augustine was being held by a few strong men as they headed toward the outskirts of Philadelphia. His team of more than 100 people had been reduced to 20 people. Their clothes were stripped off. Feng Xiaoxiao and Tang Yi were still worried. They captured 70 to 80 of his men and took away all their weapons. They asked Augustine to bring enough money to redeem them. Feng Xiaoxiao, in particular, asked his men to strip them of their clothes. Augustine's pants were stained red with blood. His lower body was crippled by Tang Yi. Santan, Tang Yi. I want you to die a horrible death. Augustine's face was ashen. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness. If his gaze could kill, Satan, Tang Yi, and the others would have died many times over. Unfortunately, his gaze could not kill. Boss, what should we do now? The Philadelphia police are a bunch of useless fools. They acted like they had seen a ghost when they saw Satan. They ran away faster than anyone else. We're in big trouble now. One of the brawny men carrying Augustine asked cautiously. Everyone knew very well that Augustine was the one who had caused them to suffer. If he had not insisted on touching Satan's woman, they would not have ended up in this situation. Especially Augustine, his lower body had been crippled by Tang Yi. In order to keep Augustine alive, Tang Yi and Feng Xiaoxiao had even ordered the doctor they had brought to perform surgery on Augustine, stitching up his wounds and injecting him with a strong painkiller. His lower body was much more important than his ears. I will make them pay 1,000 times the price. I want Satan, Tang Yi, and the others to die a horrible death. Augustine was almost roaring. His subordinates shook their heads. Satan was known as the king of the night. Even Tang Yi could easily crush Augustine to death, let alone Satan. What right did Augustine have to seek revenge? With his mouth. At this moment, Augustine had already made up his mind. He would first inform the upper echelons of this matter. The upper echelons would definitely not take this lying down. At that time, rumble rumble at this moment, a series of rumbling sounds suddenly rang out nearby, and the sky above also lit up. 2 fighter jets were circling above Philadelphia. Their giant lights shone on every corner of the city as if they were searching for something. Where did the helicopter come from? Helicopter. Strange. Damn it, that's a military fighter jet. Someone shouted. More than 20 people present looked carefully and couldn't help but turn pale. That was indeed a fighter jet, and it was a military fighter jet of Country X. What's going on? Why would a military fighter jet of Country X appear in Philadelphia? One of the subordinates broke out in a cold sweat. Could it be that the Country X government was trying to eradicate the mafia in Philadelphia? However, their strength should not have attracted the attention of the Country X government. Moreover, a war had broken out outside of Country X during this period of time. Why would they waste their military power on Philadelphia? But that was indeed a military fighter jet of Country X. There was no mistaking it. War tanks. In the blink of an eye, a large number of giant tanks gradually appeared in front of Augustine and the others. The giant cannons were equipped with muzzle retractors. When the cannons were fired, there were 2 military fighter jets in the sky, and 5 Country X war tanks on the ground. Augustine and the others were completely dumbfounded. They only wanted to know what was going on. Chapter 652. 2 Country X fighter jets and 5 Country X battle tanks suddenly appeared in Philadelphia, causing Augustine and the others to freeze in place. Even Augustine's hatred for Stan and Tang Yi instantly disappeared. Soon, dozens of military trucks appeared. Soldiers armed with light and heavy weapons stood on top of each truck. Their gazes were as sharp as an eagle's as they scanned the entire area. Not long after, a white military truck stopped in front of Augustine and the others. The door opened, and a man in a military uniform walked out. From his military rank, he was a captain. "Stop right there," the captain yelled at Augustine and the others. In the next second, hundreds of fully armed soldiers emerged from the military truck and aimed their black muzzles at Augustine and the others. At that moment, Augustine's entire body was drenched in cold sweat. These people were Country X's official army. At that moment, Augustine still had a sliver of hope that Country X had not sent their official army to Philadelphia to deal with them. Perhaps they were here for Satan. Yes, it must be Satan. Augustine was even more convinced that only someone of Satan's level could cause Country X to send out their official army to deal with them. "What's your name?" A corporal walked in front of Augustine and shouted with a submachine gun in his hand. "Augustine Cavendish." Augustine's forehead was beaded with sweat, and he looked extremely nervous. He immediately reported his full name. "Bastard!" the corporal shouted coldly. The submachine gun's target slammed into Augustine's face. Augustine was knocked to the ground by the sudden impact. The 2 strong men looked at Augustine on the ground, but they did not dare to move. None of the 20 or so people dared to make a sound. "Hand him over," the corporal shouted angrily. Then, the sound of a gun being loaded was heard. It was as if the corporal was going to pull the trigger at any moment. "Him. Ah, who are you? Where are you from?" Augustine was completely stunned by the attack just now. Now, the corporal was asking for him out of nowhere. How would he know who he was? "Bastard, I'll shoot you if you don't hand him over." The corporal raised his leg and kicked Augustine's abdomen. Augustine received 2 heavy blows in a row and almost fainted. "Mr. Liu, is this the person?" The captain opened the door and saw Lu Tingxiao get out of the car. Lu Tingxiao nodded. From the surveillance footage that was sent back, it was indeed Augustine. But now, Augustine and his subordinates were naked in Philadelphia. Augustine's lower body was covered in blood. Something must have happened to him, and Ningxi shouldn't be in Augustine's hands. "Where is my wife?" Lu Tingxiao first asked the corporal to stop beating Augustine. Then, he squatted down and sized up Augustine with his ice-cold eyes. Your wife? Who is your wife? Augustine shuffled his body backwards. The man's terrible hostility actually forced him to almost not dare to look straight at him. Ningxi, the woman you caught during the day, was shot in the leg. Although Lu Tingxiao's tone was calm, his eyes kept flashing with cold light, which made people shudder. Ningxi. I don't know him. Are you talking to the wrong person? Augustine was overwhelmed with shock. Just what was the background of that woman? First, it was Satan, and now it was a bastard. And the captain seemed to be very polite to this man. Was he a major or a colonel? Chapter 653. Augustine had thought that Country XS Army was here for Satan, but it turned out that they were here for Ningxi. The man in front of him said that Ningxi was his wife. What about Satan? Was Ningxi not Santan's woman? Augustine was not in the mood to think about that. He would never admit that he had done anything to Ningxi. Therefore, Augustine insisted that he did not know Ningxi, nor did he kidnap the wife of the man in front of him. Not talking. Lu Tingxiao stood up. His gaze was suffocating. There are many ways to make you talk. Try it if you want. Augustine's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. He sized up the mysterious man in front of him. He thought to himself, since this man is so sure that I did it, he must have sufficient evidence. No matter how hard I try to defend myself, it will be pointless. All I can do is suffer. That woman, just now, was taken away. After a moment of consideration, Augustine decided to tell the truth. Bastard, why did you kidnap Madame Lu? Speak. The corporal at the side held the target and struck Augustine with another heavy blow. These soldiers did not have good tempers. Suddenly, accompanied by a pig-like wail, a bloody wound appeared on Augustine's face. Tell me, who kidnapped Madame Lu, or you'll be executed immediately. The corporal's expression was ferocious like a wild beast. Without waiting for Augustine to speak, the captain walked to Lu Tingxiao's front and whispered, Mr. Lu, from the surveillance footage we just saw, your wife was indeed kidnapped by another group of people. Those people are still in Philadelphia. Another group of people. Lu Tingxiao frowned. What did Ningxi do in Philadelphia, and who did she offend? However, Mr. Lu, I'm afraid that group of people are not ordinary. The captain's expression was solemn. From the surveillance footage, he saw many armored vehicles and heavy machine guns. After listening to the captain's description, Lu Tingxiao pondered for a while. Without hesitation, he said, to save my wife. What should we do with these people? The captain looked at Augustine and his subordinates. Should we execute them? Lu Tingxiao shook his head. The image of this man repeatedly insulting Ningxi and even tearing her clothes appeared in his mind. He said coldly, I remember that your country has a military torture system. The captain immediately understood. Haha, Mr. Lu, I understand what you mean. Leave these people to me. I won't let you down. Thank you. Lu Tingxiao nodded slightly. Take these people to the car first, and then take them away. The corporal next to the captain gave the order, and Augustine and his subordinates were escorted into the military vehicles without any room for resistance. At this moment, Augustine's face was completely ashen. He thought that being crippled by Tang Yi was already the most hopeless outcome. He never thought that there would be something even more terrifying waiting for him. That place was an absolute azure hell. Half an hour later, somewhere in Philadelphia, 2 military fighter jets suddenly appeared in the sky above the city, and a number of tanks came one after another, forcing the armored vehicles to stop in place. Although the armored vehicles were equipped with heavy weapons, the people in the armored vehicles didn't dare to move in the face of the battlefield tanks. Those were Country XS battlefield tanks, not other toy cars. If they were to really shoot down, the armored vehicles would also be blasted into scrap metal. X****. Feng Jin was taken aback when he saw this. Could it be that the commotion tonight was too big, and it really alarmed the X-Nation? Chapter 654. At this moment, the two forces were in a standoff. The smell of gunpowder filled the air, but no one dared to act rashly. What's going on? The convoy suddenly stopped. A man's questioning voice came from a silver car at the back. In the car, Ningxi beside the man looked listless. Because of excessive blood loss, her little face was pale. She had no energy to pay attention to what was happening outside. After hearing the noise, she just raised her eyelids slightly, and then closed her eyes again. Tang Yi got out of an armored car and walked to the silver car. It's the military. Inside the car, the silver-haired man's eyes turned cold. Oh! Feicheng had always been a lawless place. Why would the military be so nosy this time? And from the looks of it, they had mobilized all the military equipment they could. Interesting. The man smiled and got out of the car. The captain's mouth twitched when he saw the silver-haired man get out of the car. He had a bad feeling about this when he saw the surveillance footage. He didn't expect this guy to really come back, so what if he's back? You can just shut your door and do whatever you want. We have nothing to do with each other. But this time, he just had to provoke a troublesome person, putting the military in the middle. Captain Wei Meng, nice to meet you. What brings you to my place for tea today? The man's tone was arrogant. He actually treated Feicheng as his own home. Feng Jin broke out in a cold sweat because of the man's arrogant tone. Sigh, this man really doesn't know how to restrain himself. They were already in a dangerous situation, and now they've provoked someone from the military. One wrong move and they might not be able to escape unscathed. The captain's expression turned stern, but he couldn't lose his temper. He said in a low voice, "Hand over the person you captured just now. It'll save everyone trouble." He still remembered the orders from his superiors to settle this peacefully. If it was just Augustine, it would be easy to settle this. But now with this person, if they were to fight, the impact would be too great. The silver-haired man raised his eyebrows. The person he captured. Who did I capture? The man asked in an interested tone. The captain thought that he was quibbling and was about to persuade him when a person got out of the car behind him. The man was still wearing the black suit that he had worn at the cocktail party. His entire body seemed to be wrapped in an icy aura, and there was not a trace of warmth in his deep eyes. After standing still, his thin lips gently opened, and his voice was cold. My wife. The moment the man appeared, the silver-haired man's gaze changed abruptly. His original indifference instantly became sharp and penetrating. He gritted his teeth and spat out 3 words, Lu Tingxiao, 2 men, separated by more than 10 steps, one evil, the other cold. The air seemed to be burning with invisible smoke and sparks. In the silver car not far away, Ningxi suddenly woke up with a start. What was going on? She seemed to have heard Lu Tingxiao's voice just now. No, how could this be? Why would Lu Tingxiao appear in a place like this? It must be an illusion. The light in Ningxi's eyes just rose and then receded. However, after all, there was still a glimmer of hope. She weakly moved to the window. The next second, when she saw the scene outside the window, she was completely stunned. In front of that terrifying, black mass of tanks and fighter jets, a tall figure stood there like an iceberg, emitting a cold aura. There was not a trace of gentleness, but it made her feel so warm that she wanted to cry. Lu Tingxiao, it was really him. After a suffocating silence, the silver-haired man opposite Lu Tingxiao spoke first. Ha, what a joke. Who is your wife? Before Lu Tingxiao could speak, a small head popped out of the silver car, waving and howling, I am. Boss. Help. Chapter 655. The moment he saw the girl, Lu Tingxiao's cold face cracked. Ningxi, it had only been a few hours since he received Jiang Mui's call, but it felt as long as several lifetimes. Now he finally saw her. Hearing Ningxi's words, the silver-haired man couldn't keep his cool anymore. He immediately turned around and cursed, bullshit. Get in the car. Tang Yi, take her away. He was annoyed to see her like this. How dare she make a cuckold of him in front of him? How dare she go against him? Feng Jin coughed slightly. Feng Xiaoxiao touched his nose and looked up at the sky speechlessly. Tang Yi walked over and started the engine as if he had expected it. Seeing the scenery outside the window passing by and Lu Tingxiao getting further and further away from her, Ningxi became anxious and leaned against the window, crying sadly, boo-hoo. I won't go. I won't go, boss, save me. Save me. Looking at the girl's pitiful little face, Lu Tingxiao's heart suddenly shrank into a ball, but what he felt was an indescribable ecstasy. Wasn't this silver-haired man the one she liked? Why did she just admit that she was his wife? Did they have a quarrel? Or, at this time, the silver-haired man had suppressed his anger and snorted disdainfully. "Ha, where were you when my baby was in danger? I saved her and now you're trying to be a hindsight. My baby." Hearing these words, Lu Tingxiao's expression immediately turned cold. He said expressionlessly, "Who caused my wife's danger?" "You." The man was speechless. Indeed, Augustine vented his anger on Ningxi because of him. If he hadn't asked Ningxi to come here, she wouldn't have been in danger. Then, the man seemed to have thought of something as he looked at Feng Xiaoxiao suspiciously. "Stupid girl, when did you change your name to my wife?" A drop of cold sweat slid down Feng Xiaoxiao's forehead. "Ahem, boss, wife is not a name. It's what I call my wife. It basically means, my wife." The silver-haired man immediately cursed, Fuck. Have you got the marriage certificate? You are my wife." The captain finally heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Madame Lu was still safe, and he continued to persuade. "Let Madame Lu go, and we can discuss everything. That's all I have to say. Otherwise, if you continue to be obstinate, then don't blame me for using force." I can't ask for more." Not only was the silver-haired man not afraid, but he was even more excited. His light brown eyes stared at Lu Tingxiao's direction like a wild beast. Feng Jin furrowed his brows. "Satan, you can't. The ship is almost here, and we can leave immediately. There's no need to clash with them at this time." Obviously, he was against ruining all the plans for a woman. He had already disagreed when they fought against Augustine, fearing that something might go wrong. But the situation was worse than he had imagined. "Satan, bear with it for a while and let them handle the situation. We can talk about it later." "Shut up." Helplessly, Feng Jin looked at Feng Xiaoxiao for help. Feng Xiaoxiao shrugged, looking like he wanted to help, but there was nothing he could do. Feng Xiaoxiao did not know why this guy was always so excited whenever something related to Lu Tingxiao happened. Moreover, little junior sister was involved this time. Anyone who tried to persuade him would die. Chapter 656. On the other side, the captain was also advising Lu Tingxiao with a solemn expression, "Mr. Lu, the situation is not optimistic. I can only threaten them, but to really use force. This is absolutely not allowed." "Why not?" Lu Tingxiao's eyes were filled with killing intent, and he was actually prepared to ignore it. At most, he would agree to all of Minister Naka's conditions. So what if this battle started? Originally, the moment he saw the silver-haired man, he had some misgivings, because he recognized that this was the person Ningxi had once said that she really liked. So she had risked her life to sneak into Philadelphia just to meet him? She was willing to follow him. This kind of fact was like a sharp arrow that pierced into his heart, causing his mind to be destroyed. However, just as he was in despair, Ningxi suddenly appeared. She actually admitted that she was his wife. She clearly didn't want to go with this person. She was begging him for help. An instant of death, an instant of life. Lu Tingxiao immediately returned to the human world from hell. No matter what, he must bring her back today. At this moment, the silver-haired man's thoughts were the same as Lu Tingxiao's. "Damn girl. Don't want to go with me? Then I'll take you away. Eldest senior brother, can you let me go? I'm begging you, okay? Eldest senior brother, if you let me go today, I will definitely repay you in my next life. Eldest senior brother, do you really not care about the friendship between fellow disciples? Am I still your most beloved junior sister?" In the car, no matter how much Ningxi begged, Tang Yi was still unmoved. Finally, Ningxi gave up and leaned against the back of the chair. Recalling the hurried meeting with Lu Tingxiao just now, the more she thought about it, the more uncomfortable she felt. It would be fine if there was no hope, but at this time, she actually saw Lu Tingxiao's side. Although this shabby car looked shabby, its performance was not bad, and it drove quite fast. Just as they were about to reach the dock, a person suddenly appeared in front of them. A person that neither she nor Tang Yi had expected to appear here at this moment. Tang Yi slammed on the brakes and stopped only half a meter away from the man. The person blocking their way had naturally curly brown hair, and his skin was tanned to the color of wheat. Between his brows, there was an unruly and unrestrained charm. It was actually Ningxi was so shocked that she stuttered, two, what two? The man raised his eyebrows. In an instant, it was as if thousands of peach blossoms had bloomed. Second senior brother, second brother, second brother, second senior brother, second senior brother, second senior brother. Ningxi's expression was as excited as a die-hard fan seeing her beloved idol. That was called cheering. He even forgot about the pain in his leg. He got off the carriage and rushed over. Second senior brother. It's really you. The man laughed heartily. Ha 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 tilde junior sister. Did you miss me? Think. Ayo, second senior brother, I miss you so much. Ningxi's eyes were brimming with tears. After not seeing him for so long, she really missed him. Among the people she was afraid of in the past, Tang Lang was the one she wanted to see the most and liked to be close to. The man stroked the girl's slightly messy long hair. Be good tilde second senior brother also misses you tilde ayaya. Little junior sister's hair is so long tilde long hair is so beautiful tilde so little junior sister is really a beautiful girl tilde. Chapter 657. Of course. I look even prettier in women's clothes. By the way, second senior brother, where have you been? Eldest senior brother said you haven't seen him for half a year. And you haven't contacted me. Ningxi complained. Tang Lang raised an eyebrow and looked at her. Same here tilde the two of them reminisced for a long time until Tang Yi said, Tang Lang. Tang Yi called the man's name. There was no expression on his face, but there was a trace of curiosity in his eyes. Aha. Senior brother, long time no see tilde did you miss me? Tang Lang stuck to him like a boneless person, his whole body lying on Tang Yi's shoulder. Tang Yi expressionlessly stretched out a hand and waved him away. Master has been looking for you. Tang Lang persevered and stuck to him again. Is it only master? What about you? At the side, Ningxi covered her eyes. Ayo. I can't look anymore. There's a child here. The flower buds of the motherland are going to be led astray by you guys. Tang Lang flicked her forehead. You're just a flower? A tyrant flower? Ningxi. Get lost. I'm a little white flower. She was already in such a miserable state. Wasn't she a poor little white flower? Unexpectedly, Tang Lang seemed to have heard a big joke. He held his stomach and burst into laughter. You, little white flower. Ha 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 ha. Ningxi's face darkened. Damn. Why can't I be a little white flower? Do you have to laugh like this? Ha 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 ha. Tang Lang held his stomach and laughed so hard that he couldn't speak. In the next second, Ningxi couldn't see how Tang Lang did it. She only saw a blur in front of her. Tang Lang, who was still laughing, suddenly waved his arm at the back of Ningxi's neck. He inserted a syringe and quickly injected him with a transparent liquid. Tang Yi didn't even have time to react and fainted. Damn. Second senior brother. You, what are you doing? Why did you inject eldest senior brother? Ningxi was stunned. Little idiot. Of course it's to save you. Tang Lang said as he caught Tang Yi's limp body and carefully placed him on the side of the road. Ningxi was still confused. Save me. There's no time to talk. Come with me, Tang Lang urged as he quickly helped Ningxi into the car, and then sat in the driver's seat. When Tang Lang sat down, he was dumbfounded. Fuck. Where did Satan get these antiques from? How do I drive this broken car? I will. But my leg is injured and I can't move it. Teach me quickly. Okay, I'll tell you. As the two of them were flipping the car around, an arm suddenly came through the window and forcefully dragged Tang Lang out of the driver's seat. Tang Yi, who had clearly fainted just now, was standing there swaying slightly, grabbing onto his clothes, his expression incomparably gloomy and terrifying. Tang Lang turned around and took off his jacket to escape. He looked at the man in front of him with a face full of disbelief. Fuck. Tang Yi, You pervert. I've already used double the dosage, and you actually woke up so quickly? Tang Yi looked at him motionlessly. His pair of ink-black eyes were like a blood-stained blade. Explain. Tang Lang frowned slightly, and his tone was slightly impatient. There's nothing to explain. The truth is what you see. Tang Yi's expression was as cold as ice. You've betrayed the organization. Tang Lang snorted. His eyes wandered, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. That's right. So what? Are you going to clean up the organization? Chapter 658. Tang Yi clenched his fists so tightly that even his knuckles began to turn white as he looked at the indifferent expression on the other party's face. Behind the glasses, his eyes, which had always been indifferent, were now filled with monstrous anger and a faint trace of pain. As he gazed at Tang Yi's injured gaze, Tang Lang's expression changed slightly, and then he avoided Tang Yi's gaze and closed his eyes before he said, Senior brother, let's fight. The winner will take little junior sister away. How about it? After a moment of silence, Tang Yi finally said, okay. Ning Shi, who was still unaware of the situation, was completely dumbfounded. What? What was going on? Second senior brother betrayed the organization. Who did he join? No, second senior brother suddenly knocked eldest senior brother out just now and wanted to save her. Could it be that he joined the Devil King? That couldn't be right. That didn't make sense. How could second senior brother be related to the Devil King? However, that seemed to be the only plausible explanation. Otherwise, why would second senior brother appear at this time and dare to go against Satan to save her? While Ning Shi was lost in thought, the two of them had already exchanged more than 10 moves. However, the tragic thing was that Tang Lang was completely suppressed. He was constantly on the defense and had no chance to attack. The little flame of hope that had just risen in Ning Shi's heart was extinguished bit by bit. She shouted anxiously, Second senior brother, can you do it or not? Tang Lang gritted his teeth as he defended against Tang Yi's almost crazy attacks. Don't ask a man if he can do it or not. As soon as he finished speaking, Tang Lang's aura instantly changed. Ning Shi's eyes instantly lit up. Tang Lang was finally serious. As expected, the situation immediately changed. Tang Lang started to fight back. The two of them were equally matched. Even if Tang Lang was serious, he was not very serious. As he fought, he was still talking nonsense. Yo, Master is really biased. He has taught you a lot of new things. Ning Shi's mouth twitched. How dare he say that? You've been missing for half a year. Of course, Master could only teach eldest senior brother. What was even more despicable was that Tang Lang's talent was too abnormal. He had learned Tang Yi's new moves on the spot and returned them to Ning Shi. Ning Shi was amazed. She hated the fact that she didn't have a plate of melon seeds and fruits. Otherwise, she would have enjoyed it even more. After being hit by a few moves that Tang Lang had learned on the spot, Tang Yi felt as if he had stepped on some kind of taboo. After being hit by a single attack, he suddenly retreated a few steps before stabilizing his body. After standing there for a while, he raised his hand and slowly took off the glasses on his face. Ning Shi's heart skipped a beat. Shit. She had been careless. She had only just realized that eldest senior brother had not taken off his glasses even though the two of them had been fighting for a long time. This meant that eldest senior brother hadn't even used his full strength just now. Not only Ning Shi, but Tang Lang also revealed a rare expression of nervousness and vigilance. Ning Shi's worries came true. After taking off his glasses, Tang Yi was like a ferocious beast that had been released from its seal. His strength was simply terrifying. Moreover, Ning Shi could see that second senior brother had been forced to use his full strength this time. In short, the two of them fought until the sky was dark. At this moment, Tang Lang didn't know how many times he had cursed damn pervert in his heart. Originally, he thought that Tang Yi had already reached a bottleneck. With his comprehension ability, it was absolutely impossible for him to have another breakthrough in this short half a year's time. So he thought that he would definitely win this time. Who knew that he had still underestimated Tang Yi? Chapter 659. This guy's talent is mediocre, but he managed to achieve this. His inhuman. There was no point in continuing the fight. At most, it would be a draw. However, time waits for no man. Satan's reinforcements were almost here. He could not delay any longer. He had to bring his junior sister away. He had to think of a way. Fuck. Think my ass. Tang Yi is too cautious. His moves are flawless. Tang Lang was only distracted for a short moment before he was punched in the face. He felt a burning pain at the corner of his mouth. Fuck. Tang Yi. Are you trying to murder your husband? You're so heavy-handed. If you get distracted again, I won't give you a second chance. Tang Yi's gaze was cold. Tang Lang's face turned pale. Fuck. I don't believe that you're never distracted. After exchanging over 100 moves, Tang Yi used his grappling hand to take Tang Lang's life. However, Tang Lang did not retreat. Instead, he advanced. Tang Yi was not afraid. Tang Lang could not attack him if he got too close. He would be digging his own grave. Tang Lang leaned closer and closer. At the same time, the corners of his lips curled up strangely. By the time Tang Yi realized that something was wrong, it was already too late. Tang Lang had already kissed him on the lips. Kissed him. Tang Lang seized the opportunity when Tang Yi was distracted. He grabbed Tang Yi's lifeline and pushed him against the car door. Senior, you've lost. She was dumbstruck. She had a tragic expression on her face. Fuck. My titanium dog eyes. Second senior. Where's your integrity? All's fair in war. Tang Lang looked proud instead of ashamed. He grinned at Tang Yi and said, Senior, don't tell me you don't want to admit it. Tang Yi's expression flickered several times before he suppressed the urge to beat this guy up so badly that even his own mother wouldn't be able to recognize him. He took a deep breath and fulfilled his promise. Scram. Tang Lang. Yes. Then, as if he was afraid that Tang Yi would regret his decision, he threw Ningxi on his shoulder and ran away. At the same time, he took out his phone and sent a message. Retreat. On the other side, the two parties were still in a stalemate. The captain persuaded him until his mouth was dry, but the other party was still completely unmoved. Time passed bit by bit, and a ray of white light appeared on the horizon. The sky was about to brighten. However, neither side had any intention of backing down. The silver-haired man yawned, looking slightly impatient. Stop nagging. Are you going to fight or not? On the other side, Lu Tingxiao, who was about to speak, pulled out his phone and casually glanced at it. When he saw the text message on his phone, his gaze paused for a moment, but he quickly returned to normal, not letting anyone notice anything amiss. Then, he looked at the man in front of him again. As you wish. The silver-haired man's eyes flashed with bloodlust when he heard this. Feng Jin had been hoping that even if his master lost his mind, the other party was Lu Tingxiao. He should be able to calm him down. Who would have thought that Lu Tingxiao was unreliable as well? His face was instantly filled with bitterness. The captain on Lu Tingxiao's side was even more miserable. Mr. Lu, you can't fight. It wasn't a matter of winning or losing. The problem was that country excess war situation was chaotic. Such a main force couldn't be lost here. Otherwise, other countries would definitely take advantage of the situation. Chapter 660. At this moment, behind Lu Tingxiao, a military off-road vehicle sped over. Then, the door opened, and Minister Naka rushed over accompanied by a few subordinates. Obviously, the captain saw that the situation was out of control, so he quickly informed his boss. Minister Naka rushed to Lu Tingxiao, his face full of nervousness. Mr. Lu, you promised me peace. Settle it peacefully. I said try your best. Lu Tingxiao said expressionlessly. Mr. Lu, I know you are eager to save your wife, but there is no other way. When they leave the territory of Country X and reach the sea, we have plenty of opportunities to make a move. There's no need to fight head-on now, is there? Minister Naka persuaded earnestly. Hearing this, Lu Tingxiao's expression began to waver. Seeing that there was hope, the minister immediately continued to work hard to move him with emotion. After persuading for a long time, Lu Tingxiao finally let go with a dark expression, retreat. On the opposite side, the silver-haired man had a face full of ridicule. Hey, why did you retreat? Did you ask me if I agreed? He had long known that with Lu Tingxiao's personality, he would never do such an irrational thing for a woman. This battle would never happen. However, Feng Jin did not know. He quickly went up to persuade him to stop while he was ahead, and not to provoke the other party to change his mind. At the same time, he ordered the people behind him to retreat immediately. The man yawned lazily and got on the armored vehicle with a dispirited expression. Anyway, that girl was already with him. You want to snatch her back? Dream on. The sea. The sea was his world. Seeing the people on the opposite side retreat, Minister Naka finally heaved a sigh of relief, but at the same time, he was more worried. Lu Tingxiao cared so much about his wife, how could he let it go? The worst thing was that he had no confidence in rescuing Mrs. Lu. Just now, he said that on purpose to stabilize Lu Tingxiao's emotions. In fact, if Satan went out to sea, it would be no different from a dragon entering the sea. It would be even more impossible to save him. Minister Naka made up his mind to send people to save her as much as possible. Whether he could save her or not, and what would happen, was not something he could control. Mr. Lu, let's go back to Dib City first to discuss the specific countermeasures and take our time. Just as Minister Naka was about to calm Lu Tingxiao's emotions, Lu Tingxiao suddenly said with a stern expression, "Return to the Philadelphia border." Minister Naka was confused. He didn't understand why Lu Tingxiao was going to the border at this time, but because of his guilty conscience, he ordered everyone to rush to the border of Philadelphia. When he was a few hundred meters away from the border, Lu Tingxiao suddenly jumped off the tank and walked forward. Hey, boss, over here. Not far from the boundary stele, someone shouted at the top of his lungs. There seemed to be a brown-haired man standing there. Beside him was a slender, long-haired girl. The girl looked a little like, after seeing the two of them clearly, Lu Tingxiao's eyes narrowed and his footsteps quickened. Beside the brown-haired man, the girl was seriously injured. She had lost too much blood, and she had been on high alert for the whole night. Her mind was in a blur, and she could only vaguely see a familiar figure walking toward her. Subconsciously, she murmured, "Lu Tingxiao." The second before she lost consciousness, she felt that she was suddenly wrapped in a warm embrace, and a slightly trembling voice came into her ears. "It's me. Sorry. Too late." Chapter 661. At the docks of Philadelphia. The fog on the surface of the sea gradually dissipated. The sun was slowly rising and the surface of the sea was filled with golden light. However, someone's face was gloomy. "Where is he?" When the man arrived with the others, all he saw was an empty broken car. Tang Yi wasn't wearing his glasses. He was standing there with his back facing the sea. He was in a daze and no one knew what he was thinking. When he saw them, he looked up and said gloomily, "He was taken away by Lu Tingxiao's men. Someone was able to take her away from you." The man's face turned ugly and his eyes were burning. "It's Tang Lang." Tang Yi didn't look too good either. The man narrowed his eyes and a cold glint appeared. Tang Lang. No wonder. No wonder Lu Tingxiao would compromise just now. He was so good at acting. He had purposely haggled with the old man and said so much nonsense to buy time so that Tang Lang would have enough time to save Ning Ning. Damn it. He had fallen for it. He had sent Tang Yi to take Ning Shi away, but he didn't expect that there would be such a change. Feng Xiaoxiao and Feng Jin were extremely shocked when they heard this. Who would have thought that Tang Lang, who had been missing for half a year, would actually become Lu Tingxiao's man? How is that possible? That's impossible. Feng Xiaoxiao was in disbelief. Second senior brother would never betray us. She, Tang Yi, and Tang Lang had been adopted by their master when they were young and the three of them grew up together. They were closer than real siblings. It was natural that they couldn't accept this fact. However, the truth was right in front of them. Tang Yi couldn't lie. Moreover, it was obvious that Tang Yi, who had just fought with Tang Lang, was in an even worse mood. Feng Xiaoxiao was afraid that he would be upset and didn't dare to ask for details. She knew that although the two of them were always fighting each other, and Tang Yi always seemed to dislike Tang Lang, the two of them had a very good relationship. They had always been going through fire and water, and their teamwork was always the best when they were out on missions. Right now, Tang Yi was probably the one feeling the most upset. With your strength, how could you lose to him so easily? A trace of doubt flashed through the man's eyes. He clearly didn't believe it. Even if Tang Yi couldn't win, he couldn't lose, and he lost so quickly. When did the two of them not fight for half a day? It was common for them to fight for 3 days and 3 nights without a clear winner. Feng Xiaoxiao actually found it rather strange as well, but she didn't ask about it. In fact, she secretly suspected that eldest senior brother had gone easy on her. Of course, she didn't dare to say this out loud. Tang Yi's expression stiffened, but he didn't offer any explanation. A loss is a loss. At this time, Feng Jin looked at the time and anxiously urged, "Get on the boat. It's time to set off." The man did not ask further. Instead, he turned around and stared at the sleeping city behind him. His slender fingers gently moved his silver hair that was fluttering in the sea breeze, revealing the eye that was covered by his bangs and had never been shown to anyone. His phoenix eye was even more beautiful than a woman's, but it was imprinted with a scar across his eye. Although the scar was already very shallow, it still destroyed the perfection of that eye. However, it added a wild and dangerous aura to the man. Lu Tingxiao, we will meet again soon. When the time comes, I will take back everything that belongs to me. Chapter 662. Why is Mrs. Lu here? When the old minister and the captain saw the woman who actually appeared here, they were all astonished. Lu Tingxiao did not say much. He took off his coat and wrapped the girl in it, then carefully picked her up by the waist. How could the old minister not understand at this moment? Lu Tingxiao did not completely believe them at all. He already had a backup plan. He was in front of them to divert their attention, but in fact, he had already secretly sent someone to save them. Naka's old face was a little embarrassed. In the end, he had indeed done too much wrong in this matter. He wanted to play tricks with them, but in the end, they saw it clearly from the beginning to the end. Thus, he hurriedly stepped forward and tried to salvage the situation. "Mr. Lu, please come this way. I'm afraid Mrs. Lu's current situation requires immediate treatment. We have already prepared the best medical team. The hospital environment is noisy. You can bring Madam directly to this old man's mansion to recuperate." What Lu Tingxiao wanted to do the most at this moment was to bring Ningxi back to the country. However, he glanced at the shocking gunshot wound on Ningxi's leg. There might be many other injuries that he did not know about. Her current situation was indeed not suitable for a long journey, and she needed immediate medical attention. In the end, Lu Tingxiao chose to stay for the time being. "Thank you." It could be considered as giving face to the old minister. Hearing this, the old minister's tense nerves finally relaxed a little, and he quickly called for the medical team to come over. The medical team had followed behind the team early in the morning, so they arrived very quickly. Immediately, someone rushed over with a stretcher, and beside him was a group of well-trained medical staff. "Mr. Lu, please carefully place Madam on the stretcher and lie down." Lu Tingxiao nodded slightly and gently placed Ningxi on it. However, just as he put her down, the girl who was originally sleeping soundly suddenly woke up. She subconsciously hugged Lu Tingxiao's neck tightly, her brows tightly knitted, revealing an incomparably pained expression. "No. Don't." The girl's voice was hoarse from not drinking water for too long. Her voice was as small as a kitten, and it sounded extremely pitiful. Lu Tingxiao's heart immediately softened, and he immediately picked up the girl again and patted her lightly. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Cough 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 cough. At the side, Tang Lang was dumbfounded as he widened his dog eyes. This was the first time he had seen such a weak little white flower version of his junior sister, and such a gentle Lu Tingxiao. It was as if he had seen a ghost. "Mr. Lu, you have such a good relationship with Madam. In that case, Mr. Lu, you can hold her for now. Just don't pull the Madam's wound," the medical staff said with a smile. "Okay." Lu Tingxiao didn't intend to put it down anyway. How could he bear to do that? Tang Lang suddenly remembered the important matter and hurriedly interrupted. "Boss, the thing I want, You promised to give it to me 3 days later. You haven't forgotten, right? Lu Tingxiao's eyes didn't leave the girl for even a second. Okay. Then I'll leave now that I've succeeded. Tang Lang bade farewell. Do you have water? Lu Tingxiao asked the doctor. Tang Lang, who was ignored, forget it. He had better get out of here. Right now, the boss only had eyes for his junior sister. To him, everyone else was as good as invisible. Hey. I didn't expect this. Is this fate? After going around in a big circle, his junior sister had actually become his lady boss. Amazing, my little junior sister. Chapter 663. The Old Minister's Residence. Lu Tingxiao sat by the bedside and held Ningxi's hand. A bunch of doctors were busy connecting tubes to Ningxi's body, drawing her blood and giving her a full body checkup in case she had any other injuries or drugs injected into her. Lu Tingxiao's brows were furrowed the entire time, his nerves not relaxing for a single moment. Please wait a moment, Mr. Lu. The results will only be out in 2 hours at the earliest. She's burning up badly. That's because the wound is infected. This is a normal phenomenon. Thankfully, Mrs. Lu had taken care of it herself. Otherwise, if the bullet were to linger in her body for too long, she might not even be able to keep her leg. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao's face was completely dark. The treasure that he had been protecting so carefully in his palms had turned into this in just a single day's time. How could he not feel heartache? 2 hours later, the results were finally out. Mr. Lu, the results are out. Mrs. Lu's body is completely normal. Other than the gunshot wound on her leg, there are no other problems. Upon hearing the results, not only Lu Tingxiao, even the old minister heaved a sigh of relief. Immediately, he instructed everyone to take good care of her and arranged the best room for them. Because he thought that Lu Tingxiao and Ningxi were husband and wife, he naturally arranged for them to share a room. Ningxi's vitality was greatly damaged this time round, and she did not wake up for a day and night. Thankfully, her fever had subsided. In order to curry favor with Lu Tingxiao, the old minister specially held a banquet in the front hall, inviting many high-ranking officials and business tycoons of the country. During the banquet, Lu Tingxiao was greeted with nothing but compliments and concern. Thankfully, Mrs. Lu is fine this time round. Otherwise, we would be in deep trouble. That's right. Mrs. Lu is blessed by the heavens. As for the matter of Ningxi being his wife, Lu Tingxiao did not explain at all. In this matter, there was a huge difference between a wife and a lover. For a random woman to cause country X to mobilize their military might was simply too much. That was why he had said that Ningxi was his wife back then. There was no way these people would really check if he was married or not. Even though Lu Tingxiao was already familiar with such situations, he was clearly a little distracted right now. His heart was on the person who had yet to wake up. He wondered if she would be afraid when she woke up and found herself in a strange place. Would she suddenly feel uncomfortable anywhere? They were still drinking and chatting merrily at the dining table. Lu Tingxiao supported his head with one hand and held a glass of wine in the other, his knuckles rhythmically tapping the glass. It was obvious that he was starting to get impatient. Glancing at the time, he was ready to leave. Just as he was about to get up, someone suddenly ran into the banquet hall. Strictly speaking, one person jumped in. Ningxi was standing on one foot, wearing loose and warm white velvet pajamas. Her long hair was a little messy, and her forehead was full of sweat. Her face was full of horror, as if she had experienced something extremely terrible. Only when her gaze passed through the long dining table and saw the man holding a glass of wine at the end did she finally calm down a little. She had a dream, a very scary nightmare. She dreamed that Lu Tingxiao had died under the gunfire in order to save her. Seeing that Lu Tingxiao was sitting there unscathed, Ningxi finally felt at ease. However, at the same time, she finally saw someone else. This table was filled with well-dressed people, who were obviously from the royal family. Ningxi's dazed mind suddenly became clear. She almost blurted out boss, but she immediately changed it to hubby. Chapter 664. In the banquet hall, there was a pin-drop silence. However, because of the word hubby, Lu Tingxiao heard a deafening roar in his ears. This is Mrs. Lu. After a while, someone at the dining table finally asked hesitantly. Lu Tingxiao had already stood up. His tall and slender figure strode towards the girl, his cold gaze landing on the girl's feet. Why aren't you wearing shoes? She shrank her toes at his stern gaze. I wore them, and they fell off on the way. Lu Tingxiao's face was stiff as he carried her up. She instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck to steady herself. She then stole a glance at the group of big shots in the banquet hall and said meekly, did I get into trouble? Hubby, why aren't you saying anything? She was really scared. She had really run around in a daze from sleep. She hadn't done it on purpose. Ningxi's adaptability was top-notch and she was already very adept at calling him hubby. But she had no idea what kind of earth-shattering impact her words had on Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao's back stiffened. It took a few seconds for his boiling blood to calm down. He turned to everyone and said, I'm sorry, everyone. My wife isn't feeling well. I'll make a move first. Everyone smiled and said, President Lu, you're too kind. Hurry and go. Don't worry about us. Of course, madam is more important. They say that men who dote on their wives are reliable. Indeed. After Lu Tingxiao left with Ningxi in his arms, there was another round of sighs in the banquet hall. I didn't believe that Lu Tingxiao would make such a big fuss over a woman. Now it seems that he really dotes on her. Luckily she's fine. If anything had happened, TSK. That's weird. Isn't Lu Tingxiao single? Where did this madam come from? I've been wanting to ask this since just now. There's nothing strange about it. There are plenty of people who get married secretly, not to mention Lu Tingxiao's status. Sigh. My daughter has been thinking about Mr. Lu every day ever since she met him. I wanted to find out more about him, but he's already taken. Come on. He can't even snatch a woman from his own country. Do you think it'll be your turn? In the bedroom. Madam Lu. Where have you been, Madam Lu? You scared me to death. The nurse who was supposed to take care of she just went out for a while, but when she came back, she disappeared. She searched everywhere but couldn't find her. She was scared out of her wits. It's fine. Leave it to me. Oh, okay. The nurse shyly looked at Lu Tingxiao and then left. Lu Tingxiao lifted the quilt and carefully put Ningxi on the bed. Ningxi immediately took credit. Boss, was I smart just now? Lu Tingxiao glanced at her. You've done more than you deserve. Ningxi immediately drooped her head. I really didn't mean to break in. Your body hasn't recovered yet. Why are you running around? Lu Tingxiao was simply speechless at this girl. Her leg was already injured to this extent, yet she still had the ability to jump around. She could still jump around happily with one leg. I had a nightmare, Lu Tingxiao sighed and explained with a slightly unnatural expression. This time, I told them that you were my wife because it was convenient to save you. Therefore, during this period of time, you might have to cooperate with us. But it won't be long. When you're feeling better, we'll go back. No problem. I'm good at acting. Hearing this, Ningxi immediately patted her chest and promised. And I can give you whatever type you want. Chapter 665. Ningxi rolled her eyes and asked, Boss, what kind of wife do you like? Virtuous? Shrewish? Are you joking? Cute? Adorable? Lu Tingxiao glanced at her. I like all of them. Ningxi's mouth twitched. Boss, you're too universal, Lu Tingxiao said, because it's you. Because it's you, I like all of them. Ningxi. I'm still weak. My heart can't take it. In a 5-star hotel in Dib City. It was the 3rd day and there was still no news from Ningxi. Guo was so anxious. Mui, who was the person you called last night? Is she reliable or not? Jiang Mui's face darkened. He didn't speak. Not reliable? If she wasn't reliable, then no one was reliable. In fact, when he called Lu Tingxiao, he was really struggling. It was the first time he hated himself for being so useless and powerless. He couldn't protect the woman he liked and had to turn to others for help. No man could stand it. Now he really believed in karma. Back then, when he was young and ignorant, he had hurt so many girls, but he didn't care about it. Now, he had paid back all his sins. He had called Cheng Feng to ask about the situation and learned that it was a tricky problem, so he didn't dare to call him. But it had been so long. Maybe there was news already? Jiang Mui thought and made a call. If God gave him another chance, he might. He definitely wouldn't make this phone call that tortured his liver to the point of pain. Hello, uncle. Have you found her? Yes. The man's calm voice came from the other end. How is Ningxi? Is she okay? May I have a word with her? Lu Tingxiao frowned. He didn't want Ningxi to be disturbed at this time. Well, he just didn't want his wife to talk to other men, especially this man who obviously cared about his wife. Because he cared about her too much. Even if someone touched her, he would think it was robbery. At that time, Ningxi was taking her body temperature. She heard Jiang Mui's voice and was shocked. Oh no. I suddenly disappeared. The crew must be worried sick. Honey, come and pick me up. Well, from all aspects, Ningxi was a rare and good actress. Her speed and professionalism, he would never be exposed. Lu Tingxiao said, okay. He immediately handed the phone over. Ningxi quickly took it. Hey, Jiang Mui. Fuck. Ning Xiaoxi, what the hell are you doing? I was almost scared to death by you. Did you have nothing better to do than to go to Philadelphia? Also, why did I hear you calling me hubby just now? Who are you calling? Jiang Mui asked hesitantly. You must be hallucinating. Ningxi said calmly, and then casually made up an excuse. You know, the security here is not very good. I was kidnapped by a group of people, but fortunately, your uncle arrived in time, and I'm fine now. How are you? Are you all right? Are you hurt? Jiang Mui asked nervously. It's just a small injury. It doesn't matter. By the way, let's not talk about this. I have a very important matter to discuss with you. Ningxi said solemnly. What is it? Jiang Mui asked suspiciously. Ningxi glanced around the room. Seeing that Lu Tingxiao had gone to the doctor, she hurriedly said, Teach me how to confess to a man. Chapter 666. The other end of the phone was silent for at least 10 seconds. Finally, Ningxi couldn't wait any longer. Hello? Jiang Mui. Jiang Jinmao. Are you still there? Fuck. What a stupid signal. You dropped the ball at the critical moment. Hello? Ningxi was burning with anxiety. When she was about to hang up and redial, Jiang Mui's feeble voice came from the other end of the phone. You are still there. Hurry up. Teach me. Ningxi urged. Fuck, teach you. I have never confessed to a man. How would I know? Jiang Mui was exasperated. Who said you didn't? When I was in school, I heard that you confessed to a good-looking junior and he said yes. Ningxi retorted. Ning Xiaoxi. Fuck you. I was just kidding. No. He felt he was going to die of anger. Jiang Mui took a deep breath and cursed. Why did you come to me to confess to a man? Why don't you just ask yourself? No one is more experienced than you. Ningxi raised her eyebrows. You can't say that. Those scumbags were too easy. I didn't need to confess at all. Even Su Yang, he took the initiative first. It was my first time. I really don't know how to do it. Jiang Mui couldn't refute her. She didn't confess to him at that time. Fuck. After dating for a while, he realized that he didn't get anything, but was abused. And he was abused until now. Wait, I haven't asked you yet. Who is the man you mentioned? Which boy are you going to hurt? Jiang Mui asked warily. Your uncle. Jiang Mui felt he couldn't keep up with her at all. Why did you change your mind again? What's so strange about that? Your uncle saved me this time. I owe him my life. Ningxi said matter-of-factly. Hearing this, Jiang Mui couldn't describe his feelings at this moment. After a long silence, he asked, just because of this? What if the person who saved her was him instead of Lu Tingxiao? Then, would she also? He actually gave up the opportunity just like that. Lu Tingxiao. Ningxi, what else? This thought kept spinning in Jiang Mui's mind. In the end, he couldn't help but ask, what if I was the one who saved you? Are you going to devote yourself to me? On the other end of the line, Ningxi replied without hesitation, how is that possible? I'm not stupid. Jiang Mui was speechless. Ning Xiaoxi, go to hell. Who the hell do you want to ask? Anyway, I don't know. Hey, hey. Why did you fall out with me? Is your period coming? Why are you so violent? Get lost. Please. Help me think about it. You're the only one I can discuss with. It's not easy for me to have second thoughts. Ningxi said in a sorrowful tone. Jiang Mui gnashed his teeth. Do you dare to say this to your ex-boyfriends? Aren't you? Jiang Mui didn't want to talk to her anymore. He just wanted to get rid of her as soon as possible. Are you an idiot? My uncle likes you. Why are you confessing to him? Why don't you just tell him what you want? You are so boring. How can that be the same? Of course, I want to give my beloved a romantic and unforgettable experience. Confessing to him is a must. Bye. Jiang Mui hung up the phone with a bang. Your friend Golden Retriever has been seriously injured. Chapter 667. Seeing Ningxi chatting with Jiang Mui for so long, Lu Tingxiao's face turned serious. It's time to take the medicine. Oh, right away. Ningxi hung up. When she was about to return the phone to Lu Tingxiao, her eyes widened. This. On the desktop of Lu Tingxiao's phone was the photo of them at the amusement park last time. She had thought that Lu Tingxiao just wanted to play along with them and that he didn't like it. She didn't expect, hey, how could the devil be so cute? She also wanted to set these photos as the desktop of her phone, but her profession didn't allow it. If she was too high profile, there would be unnecessary gossip. However, she liked the desktop of her phone very much. It was the first portrait that Xiaobao had drawn for her. So far, many people had asked her which master had drawn the portrait and begged her to introduce him to them. But of course, she wouldn't introduce Master Xiaobao to them. Lu Tingxiao saw that she was looking at the screen of her phone with a rare unnatural expression. He took the phone away and handed the pill to her. Ningxi looked at the dozens of pills and felt a headache. Why are there so many? Do I have to eat them all? The nurse holding the tray hurriedly explained, Mrs. Lu, you have to eat them all. You have a low fever and your wound is seriously inflamed. Besides, the nurse babbled for a long time, but the main point was that she couldn't miss a single pill. She could only look at Lu Tingxiao for help. However, Lu Tingxiao's expression was extremely stern. If you don't want to take the medicine, don't mess around next time. She blinked her eyes. Honey, Lu Tingxiao said. I'll take you out to play after the medicine. There are sika deer in the garden. Ningxi's eyes lit up and she immediately took the medicine. Although she was afraid of taking medicine, she wouldn't throw a tantrum. It was just that, she was too greedy for Lu Tingxiao's warmth. Only in front of him would she completely let go of her weakness and capriciousness. The young nurse at the side looked at the two of them and was so envious that tears streamed down her cheeks. This was too much. He was completely coaxing her like a daughter. Mr. Lu was usually so cold. It was incredible. After that phone call, Ningxi began to think about how to confess. She had always thought that she was an expert at picking up girls, but she had never expected that a small matter like confessing would stumble her. Actually, it wasn't that this matter was difficult. Her main target was the Demon King, and he had done so much for her. She thought that this confession couldn't be too shabby, so she couldn't help but be cautious. Therefore, that night, Ningxi began to seek outside help after thinking hard but to no avail. This time, the level of the foreign aid was obviously higher than Jiang Mui's. Hello. Who is this? The person on the other end of the phone seemed to have been woken up from his sleep. Hey, second young master, it's me, little 1111. Are you all right? I heard from my brother that you were kidnapped. And he was shot. Why are you calling me so late at night? Did something happen? Yes. It was a matter of utmost urgency. Second young master, requesting emergency backup. What kind of confession can leave a deep impression on the other party? Ning, she asked in one breath. On the other end of the phone, Lu Jingli was silent for a long time before he stammered, confession. Confession. Little 1111, are you going to confess to someone? Chapter 668. Ning, she rolled her eyes and replied, it's not me. It's a friend of mine. If it were her, he would never teach her, considering how protective he was of his brother. However, she did not expect Lu Jingli to be so quick-witted. He immediately said indignantly, you're lying. It must be you. Which bastard are you going to confess to? I'm going to kill him. Ning, she raised her eyebrows. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. My knife is thirsty. Ning, she couldn't help laughing. This guy was really loyal to his brother. Since Lu Jingli knew about it, he would definitely not help her, so she could only use some special methods. So Ning, she deliberately said in a threatening tone, you don't need to know who it is. You'll find out later. How about it? Are you going to teach me or not? If you don't teach me, I'll ask your brother to teach me. Ning, she was going to give Lu Tingxiao a surprise. Of course, she could not tell him who Lu Jingli was. Otherwise, he would not be able to control himself and tell Lu Tingxiao. Then why would she give him a surprise? Little 1111, how can you do this? My brother will be so sad if he teaches you. Little 1111, from today on, I've decided not to like you. You disappoint me. Lu Jingli, the crazy protector of his brother, burst out. Ning, she suppressed her laughter and said in a tone of a villain, so, little goldfish, are you going to teach me or not? If you don't, I'll really ask your brother. You. Lu Jingli said in a sorrowful tone, okay. I'll teach you. Also, I'm not a goldfish. I'm a koi. He did not forget this question even though he was so sad. I'm a koi. Why am I so sad? I'm so sad. Then tell me quickly. Ning, she urged him and lowered her voice. She glanced cautiously in the direction of the bathroom. Lu Tingxiao was taking a shower and should be done soon. Lu Jingli said absent-mindedly, put some mud on your face, draw a clown, ride a wheelbarrow, and lead a donkey. Ning, she interrupted him and said angrily, Lu Jingli, if you don't take it seriously, I'm really going to ask your brother. Lu Jingli sniffled a little and said in a sobbing voice, if he's in love for the first time, you'll take off your clothes. If he's seen countless people, you'll be by the stove. I can only teach you so much. This is the essence of what I have learned in my lifetime. Figure it out yourself. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. I'm hanging up. Bye-bye. Your good friend Lu Koi has sustained serious injuries, Lu Jingli thought to himself. From his limited understanding, he could at least be sure that the guy Ning she liked must be a cunning person who had read countless people. So, he would let Ning she cook a meal for him and then confess. This was the safest method he could think of that wouldn't cause Ning she any trouble. Ning she looked at the phone and was speechless. However, after carefully considering Lu Jingli's words, she felt that they did make sense. She also understood this logic, but she was temporarily limited by her own thoughts. She always wanted to make a big scene. Actually, it was not a bad idea to change his way of thinking. First awakening of love, using a honey trap, reading countless people, using a gourmet trap. Lu Tingxiao hadn't been in a relationship for the past few decades, so it must be his first awakening of love. TSK, this guy Lu Jingli, even when he didn't know the truth, he could still provide assistance. He was really amazing. Chapter 669. Still not sleeping? When Lu Tingxiao came out of the shower, he saw Ning she holding the phone in her hand. She was writing something in a small notebook while talking. She looked excited. He could not help but frown. Right away, Ning she quickly tucked the little notebook under the pillow as if it was a treasure. Then, in his heart, he secretly planned his confession plan later. Lu Tingxiao glanced at the pillow out of the corner of his eye. He seemed a little suspicious, but he did not care too much. Have you taken your medicine? Ning, she nodded repeatedly. Her eyes kept looking at Lu Tingxiao's bare, honey-colored chest in his pajamas. I've taken it. I've also drunk the milk. Sigh, this kind of confession method. Is it really unforgettable and unforgettable? Did he really not need to create a 10-mile sea of flowers at an altitude of 8,000 meters and then announce it to the world? She felt that this was in line with the style of the great devil. Well, she did not have the ability to do the latter. Lu Tingxiao dried his slightly wet hair with a towel, then approached her and touched her forehead with his warm, damp palm. Fortunately, you don't have a fever. Ning, she was about to start implementing the plan when a phone suddenly rang in the room. She could not help but puff up her cheeks with a sullen face. Who was it? Lu Tingxiao walked to the table, picked up the phone, glanced at it, and then picked it up. Hello. Hello. Brother. Lu Jingli's voice was sobbing, and he deliberately lowered it as if he was guarding against something. What's wrong? Lu Tingxiao had never heard Lu Jingli sound so sad before. He could not help but frown. Did something happen at home? Brother, is little 1111 next to you? Lu Jingli asked. Yes. Then go away to answer the phone. Don't let her hear me. I'm going to tell you. Lu Jingli said nervously. Lu Tingxiao was puzzled, but he still walked to the balcony. Say it. On the other end of the phone, Lu Jingli seemed to be struggling violently before he said, Brother, I didn't want to tell you, but I think it's better to tell you now than when you are completely unprepared. So, I think it's better to tell you now, so that you won't be more sad when you find out. What is it? Lu Tingxiao frowned. He had a bad feeling about this. Lu Jingli took a deep breath and said word by word, little 1111 is going to confess to that man. Lu Tingxiao's face went blank for a moment. What did you say? Lu Jingli was indignant. Little 1111 is going to confess to the man she likes. She called me just now and told me herself. She even asked me to help her strategize. Deathly silence. After a long time, when Lu Jingli was so nervous that he was about to have a heart attack, he finally heard Lu Tingxiao's voice. Really? Brother, are you okay? Lu Jingli asked anxiously. I'm fine. Lu Tingxiao's tone didn't sound the slightest bit abnormal. Chapter 670. The more he thought about it, the sadder he felt. Not long ago, he had suspected that little 1111 might have a little interest in his brother and was ready to test her. Who knew that when he finally met her, he would receive such shocking news before he had the chance to test her? Lu Jingli told Lu Tingxiao everything. Because she threatened me that if I didn't teach her, she would ask you directly, so I had to teach her a little. I told her to cook for the man if he knew a lot of people, and to seduce him if he was in love. I guessed she was going to cook for him. Oh, I'm screwed. What if she combined my methods and seduced him? Oh, brother, I'm so sorry. Lu Jingli was still talking, but Lu Tingxiao felt that his voice was getting farther and farther away, and even the whole world was getting farther and farther away. The moment he heard Lu Jingli say that Ning she was going to confess to that man, the world under his seemingly calm surface had been smashed into ashes, as if it had been hit by a planet. All the bloodthirst and negative emotions flowed backward in his blood, colliding with the reason that he didn't want to hurt her. They rushed through his body again and again, almost tearing his whole body into pieces. His heart hurt so much that it almost exploded. Ning she rolled on the bed for a long time. Lu Tingxiao finally finished the phone call and entered the room. But he seemed to be wrong. How to put it? Like the sun in a state of eclipse, all the light disappeared in an instant, and all the emotions and vitality disappeared in an instant. Ning Xi's eyebrows twitched, and she keenly sensed something. Then she immediately cursed in her heart. Damn. That phone call just now couldn't have been from Lu Jingli, right? Did he tell Lu Tingxiao everything? She didn't have to think about it anymore. It must be. Otherwise, Lu Tingxiao wouldn't have such an expression. She thought that Lu Jingli wouldn't say anything to avoid Lu Tingxiao's sadness. Unexpectedly, he told him directly. Damn it. She had wanted to prepare for a little longer. But now, looking at the devil's expression, obviously, if he didn't explode in silence, he would die in silence. She couldn't bear to waste a second. She had to finish it quickly. Ningxi sighed and pinched her eyebrows. Then, she buried her head into the quilt. A few seconds later, she poked her head out and looked at the man. Mr. Boss. Lu Tingxiao lifted his head and looked at her with his empty eyes. Can I come over for a bit? Ningxi asked, her voice unusually soft, as if she was afraid of disturbing something. Lu Tingxiao's slender body stiffened. As if it was a conditioned reflex, he mechanically walked to the edge of the bed. Ningxi stared at the man in front of the bed. Chapter 671. The night was dark and there was no moon outside the window. There were only 2s and 3s of stars hanging in the dark curtain. Inside the window, there was not a trace of light, only a vague silhouette could be seen. The man leaned forward stiffly, one hand on the girl's waist. The girl was kneeling on the bed, her arms around the man's neck. The slightly raised curve of her neck was breathtakingly beautiful in the dim light. If Lu Tingxiao's world had been blown up by Lu Jingli's bad news and his mind had gone blank because of his inner struggle, then at this moment, he probably didn't even know who he was. It was too quiet. It was as if the other party had been struck by lightning, not moving an inch. In the end, Ningxi's heart was beating like a drum. What was going on? Whether it was good or bad, there should at least be some reaction, right? She had prepared for this for so long, sacrificed so many brain cells, and still went all out. Ningxi's tone was inevitably a little aggrieved. Hey, Lu Tingxiao, I'm confessing to you, can't you give me some reaction? Even if you reject me. Lu Tingxiao finally reacted, but his body remained motionless like a statue. Only his warm breath indicated that he was talking. What did you just say? I said I'm confessing to you. Me? Of course, who else do you think I am? After a short conversation, there was dead silence again. It wasn't until a achoo, as soft as a mosquito's hum, rang out in the air that this frozen moment was finally awakened. It was already late winter, even if the heater was turned on, it would still be cold if she didn't wear anything. The next second, before his brain could react, Lu Tingxiao quickly grabbed the quilt next to him and wrapped the girl tightly like a silkworm cocoon. Nonsense. Don't you think you're sick enough? Ningxi shrank her neck, sniffling and muttering softly, so boring. I thought my head was about to explode, and I even went around to ask for advice before I came up with this idea. I wanted to give you an unforgettable confession experience. Achoo. Put on your clothes. Where are your clothes? Lu Tingxiao felt like he was going crazy. I'm not wearing it, you haven't given me an answer yet. Ningxi muttered. Her clothes were still under the quilt. Because she was in a hurry just now, she could only crawl in and quickly undress. Lu Tingxiao's expression was indescribable. Do you still need me to give you an answer? Ningxi's eyes lit up, and then she continued to ask, then, did you have a pleasant surprise and an unforgettable memory? I feel that this method of confession is too ordinary and not exciting enough. It was all Lu Jingli's fault, he had such a big mouth. Originally, I was going to think about it for a while and at least wait until tomorrow to tell you. In the end, I saw that you misunderstood, and I was afraid that your imagination would run wild, so I had no choice but to change it at the last minute until now, making me so rush. Listening to the girl's complaints, Lu Tingxiao simply did not know what to say. His slender fingers helplessly touched his forehead. Finally, he grabbed her hand and placed it on his left chest. His voice was difficult and hoarse, as if he had just returned to the human world from the depths of hell, not exciting enough. My heart is about to stop beating because of you. What else do you want? It's that serious. Ningxi blinked. She was afraid that it was not exciting or special enough, but she did not expect that she would use too much force. Chapter 672. However, the truth was in front of her. Under her palm, Lu Tingxiao's heartbeat was so chaotic that it was as if he had been hit by a virus. Several times, he missed half a beat. Ningxi had to believe that she had indeed used too much force. So she started to shift the blame. Well, you can't blame me. It's your brother's fault. He taught me this idea. It's all his fault. Actually, it wasn't Lu Jingli's fault. Lu Jingli had led her in the direction of purity and safety. How could he have known that things would go wrong? At this moment, in Lu Jingli's villa in China, a little koi was holding a pillow and crying silently. His good days were over. He didn't know what kind of miserable life he would have to face in the future. Otherwise, he might as well run away from home. No, he might as well go straight to Buddhism and take little treasure with him. He had thought that Ningxi was going to do another man's mantle, but in the end, she was going to undress his brother. At this moment, Lu Tingxiao was staring at her fiercely. His eyes were like X-rays that could penetrate the most secret corners of her body. Ningxi felt a little creeped out. What's wrong? Lu Tingxiao reached out and touched her forehead. After a while, he touched it again. After a few seconds, he touched it again. When Lu Tingxiao touched her for the fourth time, Ningxi finally couldn't bear it anymore. She pressed his hand down. Stop touching. Calluses are forming on my forehead. I don't have a fever, I don't drink, I'm not sleepwalking, I'm very sober. Lu Tingxiao looked at her seriously. Are you sure it's me? Ningxi said, yes, I'm sure. Lu Tingxiao asked, why? She couldn't blame Lu Tingxiao for having such a reaction and doubt. Even now, he still felt that he was dreaming. What happened tonight was definitely the biggest change and accident in his life. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it overturned all of his logic and common sense. Ningxi confessed to him. She actually said, she liked him. The person she confessed to was not someone else, but himself. It was completely impossible, but it had happened. Why? Hearing this question, Ningxi was a little dazed. Lu Tingxiao asked why it was him. She was asking herself why she finally opened her mouth. Why did she tell him? In such a sudden and unexpected situation, even she herself did not expect it. At first, she wanted to bury her feelings for him for the rest of her life. Later, she wanted to wait for the right time to be able to stand side by side with him. But in the end, her plans changed again and again. It could only be said that he had no choice but to do what he wanted. Ever since Grand Senior Brother told her that Satan wanted to meet her in Philadelphia, until the day before yesterday, when she was on the brink of death, her thoughts had changed drastically. The moment before she thought she was going to die, what she regretted the most was that she didn't let Lu Tingxiao hear what she said to him during the fireworks show at the amusement park. We never know which will come first, the future or the accident. If possible, don't wait for tomorrow, don't wait for the future. If you can do it now, say it now, do it now. That was the reason. Therefore, even though she was a little impulsive when she confessed to Lu Tingxiao, she didn't regret it at all. When she raised her head again, there was only dazzling light in Ningxi's eyes. She looked at the man who was obviously nervous, kissed his lips and replied, because I really like eating cabbage more tilde. Chapter 673. Because I realized. I really like to eat cabbage more. Before she could leave, Lu Tingxiao's cold gaze suddenly lit up with fire. In an instant, he held the back of her head and forcefully deepened the kiss. Unlike the girl's light touch, he pried open her teeth the moment he came into contact with her and plundered her territory. The room was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. There was only the sound of water dripping and clothes rubbing against each other. In this quiet night, it easily ignited the air. Lu Tingxiao hugged her, along with the blanket, and kissed her until the end. His palm uncontrollably slid under the blanket, from her beautiful and slender neck to the most beautiful butterfly bone on the girl's body. It slid along the edge of her back all the way to her tailbone, until it touched the only piece of fabric on her body. This lass's insides were completely bare. Apart from a thin underwear, she wasn't wearing anything else. She had completely stripped off. Damn it. Lu Tingxiao's face showed signs of breaking down. He held her chin and kissed her even more ferociously. Ningxi's head was dizzy. Her tongue was numb from being sucked. She felt a pair of rough fingers moving on her skin, causing her to shiver. She was not used to the unfamiliar feeling, but she didn't feel that extreme repulsion and disgust like before. Even though she knew that the other party was on the verge of losing control, she still felt at ease, because this person was him. The next second, her body was placed on the big bed behind her. In the darkness, the man's eyes were like a beast that had been starving for thousands of years, locking onto her tightly. "Put on your clothes." Ningxi's breathing was messy and her chest was heaving up and down violently. She was stunned when she heard that. "Huh?" After regaining her senses, Ningxi blinked her eyes and asked, "Are you sure you want me to put on your clothes? Why do I feel that something is wrong? It's not going according to the script." "What's the script?" The man looked at her, his voice unusually hoarse. Ningxi thought about it seriously. "Anyway, it's definitely not the male lead who wants the female lead to put on her clothes. Shouldn't it be the two of them sharing their heartfelt feelings and then having sex?" Lu Tingxiao gritted his teeth and bit her lips as if punishing her. "Are you sure your body can take it?" His dangerous tone made Ningxi shiver and shake her head like a rattle. Even if she was not injured and jumping around, she would still feel uncomfortable. Wait a minute. This means, you've really considered following the script. It's only because I'm injured. Ningxi thought, and then said quietly, "I remember. When we first met, someone told me that he would only accept sexual relationships with marriage as the premise." Lu Tingxiao narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Are you not going to take responsibility for me?" Ningxi was stunned again. She stopped him and said, "What's wrong? This script isn't right. Shouldn't the man be responsible for the woman?" Lu Tingxiao nodded. "Sure." Ningxi. She had fallen into a trap. He really couldn't be distracted when talking to the great demon king. Thus, that night, Ningxi had no choice but to consider another problem. Confessing was just out of passion. Then, what happened after the confession? How to deal with it? What kind of relationship did she have with Lu Tingxiao now? Chapter 674. Outside the window, the night was as cold as water. The room was filled with warm air. On the warm white bed, the girl's delicate body was buried in the soft blanket. Her breathing was long and steady. She was sleeping soundly. Lu Tingxiao sat on the bed, his fingers twirling around the girl's hair. He watched her sleeping face quietly. He hadn't slept all night. His mind was filled with her every word, every frown, and every smile. She said, "Lu Tingxiao, I like you very much," she said, "because I found that I really like eating cabbage." A second ago, he had fallen into the abyss because of Lu Jingli's phone call. The next second, he was saved. He had always liked to be in control of everything. He didn't like the feeling of things getting out of his control. The girl in front of him was a complete uncertainty. She could bring unpredictable situations to his life at any time. It was as if he was destined to die. He couldn't escape it. But he didn't want to escape. Although he hadn't slept all night, Lu Tingxiao wasn't sleepy at all. Instead, he was exceptionally energetic. When it was close to midnight, he keenly sensed that there seemed to be someone outside the room. So he tucked Ningxi in and pushed the door open. Sure enough, there was a man standing under the eaves of the corridor outside. There was a pile of cigarette butts at his feet. He didn't know how long he had been there. Seeing Lu Tingxiao come out, the man raised his head and said in a hoarse voice, "Boss." At this moment, the usually carefree and high-spirited Tang Lang's face was pale. His beard was unshaven and there was a heavy shadow under his eyes. He looked unusually haggard. Lu Tingxiao didn't seem surprised by Tang Lang's state. He only said with a cold expression, "Have you seen it?" Tang Lang nodded with difficulty. After hesitating for a long time, he asked, "The things you showed me, are they all real? A friend of mine in the military found them. You should have heard of the Mo family in the capital." Lu Tingxiao replied. Tang Lang's face instantly darkened. Lu Tingxiao's words were undoubtedly the straw that broke the camel's back. Of course he knew about the Mo family. The old man of the Mo family was in charge of the intelligence department of the Chinese military. It was fine if they didn't investigate this kind of thing. But as long as they did, they would definitely investigate. Tang Lang closed his eyes in extreme pain. His body trembled slightly and he muttered inaudibly, "I regret it. If I knew, I would have been muddle-headed. I wouldn't have investigated the truth. Half a year is up, and my promise has been fulfilled. Now, you can decide whether to stay or leave. Lu Tingxiao said. Tang Lang stroked his chin. Oh, if that's the case, wouldn't you be at too much of a loss? I've been wandering around here for half a year without doing anything. You saved her. Soldiers were trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. Therefore, it was not a loss at all. Moreover, this was the best decision he had ever made. Ah, all right. Tang Lang sighed. Sigh, where else can I go now? This time, in order to save junior sister, I've completely exposed myself. Boss, please take me in. If you don't protect me, I'm dead meat. The Mo family is interested in recruiting you into the military. Are you interested? Your past identity and everything else can be erased. Lu Tingxiao said. Tang Lang was slightly stunned when he heard this, and he went silent for a long time before refusing in the end. Forget it. What's the point of going to that damnable place? There's no freedom at all. Boss, can you arrange an ordinary job for me? Sigh, I'm a little envious of junior sister Tilda. I suddenly want to live a normal life. Tilda sure. You can go find Cheng Feng, he will help you arrange it. Then I'll have to thank Lord Boss. Tilda, Tang Lang said gratefully. Following which, the corner of his eyes inadvertently swept past the exposed area on Lu Tingxiao's shoulder, and his voice suddenly rose. Yo! Last night was very intense. Chapter 675. Lu Tingxiao lowered his head and looked at the few red marks on his shoulder that were accidentally scratched by Ningxi. When are we going to attend your wedding? Tang Lang teased. Lu Tingxiao's cold eyes melted slightly. Look at her. Noticing that Lu Tingxiao's face had softened when he mentioned Ningxi, Tang Lang's smiling eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of worry. Look at her. If he looked at his junior sister, then wouldn't he never be able to drink this cup of wine for the rest of his life? As far as he knew, his junior sister was a firm believer in marriage. He really didn't believe that anyone would have the ability to drag her into the grave of marriage, even if that person was Lu Tingxiao. He didn't know what kind of relationship Ningxi and Lu Tingxiao currently had. Kept. Lover. Or lover. No matter which one it was, he actually wasn't very optimistic about these two people, because whether it was their personality, occupation, life background, or even values, there was too big of a difference. Little junior sister's fiery and unruly temperament, and Lu Tingxiao's proud and aloof 10,000-year-old iceberg, this godlike combination was simply too fantastical and unbelievable. It was completely impossible to imagine how the two of them got along, including the position on the bed. Early in the morning, Ningxi opened her eyes in a daze. She subconsciously looked around and saw that Lu Tingxiao was already awake on the sofa opposite her. There was a laptop on the table, and he was focused on the densely packed figures and diagrams on the screen. The sunlight shone through the window and jumped on his hair and shoulders, as if plated him with a layer of golden light. It was unbelievably beautiful. It made her inexplicably think of a sentence: the most beautiful thing in this world is to wake up in the morning with sunshine and you by my side. As if sensing her gaze on him, Lu Tingxiao raised his head from the screen. He raised his eyes slightly and met the girl's gaze. You're awake. Ningxi nodded in a daze and yawned. Lu Tingxiao put down the computer, stood up, and walked to the bed with his slender legs. He leaned over and kissed the girl's lips. Ningxi, at first, it was just a gentle kiss, but in the end, the kiss became deeper and stronger. The wet feeling spread all the way to her neck, leaving red marks one after another. Ningxi subconsciously arched her body and her fingers gripped the bedsheets. As soon as she woke up, an overwhelming kiss engulfed Ningxi, making her dizzy. Although she hadn't woken up yet, her body had already woken up. When the man's head was buried deeper, Ningxi finally began to panic and reached out to push him. Hey, so early in the morning, you seduced me first. The man's voice was hoarse. Ningxi was speechless. I seduced you. When did I seduce you? I just woke up and didn't do anything other than opening my eyes. Why are you looking at me like that? Lu Tingxiao's dark eyes locked onto her. What kind of look? Ningxi blinked and tried to recall. The way she looked at Lu Tingxiao just now, there seemed to be something wrong. Lu. Ting Lu. Ning couldn't help holding the man Ning. She said. Lu Ning. She. Tingling she, God she, I said. What happened to the celibate Prince Charming? Chapter 676. The man's response was to kiss her again. Ning she, yes? Let's go home. The doctor said your condition has stabilized. We can go now. Okay. I've been wanting to go home for a long time. They stayed in bed for a long time before they finally got up. When Ning she put on her clothes, she took a look. Her neck, collar, and even her lower body were covered with kiss marks. Luckily, it was winter and she could wear a turtleneck. But she felt a little awkward when she asked the nurse for a turtleneck sweater. The nurse was young, but she was already married. Hearing Ning she's request, she knew what it was. She immediately said, "Oh, Mr. Lu, madam, you're still injured. Why can't you control yourself? The wound must have split open. It's easy to touch that part. I even reminded him not to have sex with anyone." Ning she's injury was near the base of her thigh. If they did something, the wound would be torn. The nurse was worried and kept nagging. Ning she held her forehead and said, "Nurse, don't worry. We didn't do it." She didn't expect the nurse to remind Lu Tingxiao about that. She was so dedicated. No. That's good. Mr. Lu really loves you. However, the nurse didn't feel relieved. Instead, she became more worried. But it's not good for Mr. Lu's health. How about I teach you some other methods? You don't have to do it. Don't be shy. Ning she said, something's not right. Nurse, why are you suddenly teaching me about sex? What are you talking about? Lu Tingxiao walked in. Ning she put on an innocent expression. Nothing. Let's go. I've booked the plane tickets. Okay. Ning she stretched out her hands. Lu Tingxiao walked over and bent over to pick her up. When the two of them left, the old minister brought a large group of people to see them off. The scene was unusually grand. Ning she felt a little guilty even though she was good at acting. On their way back, Lu Tingxiao booked an international flight. They didn't use a helicopter because the plane was more stable. The first-class cabin was spacious and comfortable. Lu Tingxiao helped her adjust the back of the recliner and covered it with a cashmere blanket. Take a nap. I can't sleep. Ning she shook her head and said worriedly, Lu Tingxiao. Say, what if Minister Naka and the others find out that you lied to them? It won't cause any international disputes, will it? Lu Tingxiao chuckled. Then I'll have to trouble Madam to save me. Ning she was taken aback. Could it be that Lu Tingxiao was trying to make it real? Not wanting to put her in a difficult position, Lu Tingxiao stopped the topic in time and rubbed her head. I'm just kidding. Don't worry, they've already gotten what they want, so it's not a big deal even if they know. Ning she nodded and felt relieved. Lu Tingxiao said and suddenly looked at her. Ning she, can I ask you a question? What? Why did you choose me in the end? This question. Well, let me think. Ning she pondered for a long time and then replied, 1% of the reason is that you are mature, reliable, good-looking, and nice to me. Lu Tingxiao raised his eyebrows. What about the other 99%? Ning she blinked. The other 99%, of course, is because of Xiaobao. Chapter 677. Ning she said, the other 99%, of course, is because of Xiaobao. Lu Tingxiao, Xiaobao's bonus points. Wasn't it too amazing? 99 points in one go. He didn't know whether to be happy or sad. Looking at the girl's sly smile, Lu Tingxiao said helplessly, it was evening when Ning Shi and Lu Tingxiao got off the plane. Only the driver came to pick them up. Where's Jingli? Lu Tingxiao asked casually after getting in the car. The driver replied awkwardly, second young master is busy, so he can't come in person. Hearing this, Ning Shi immediately raised her eyebrows, dragged out her voice, and faintly said, busy? I think he doesn't want to see me. The driver, Actually, Miss Ningxi's guess was right. Second young master's exact words were, "I don't want to go. I don't want to see that woman again. In the future, I'll either be her or me." Lu Tingxiao naturally guessed the reason why Lu Jingli didn't come. "Do you want to explain to him?" Ningxi shook her head and snorted. "No. I'll scare him to death when he sees it with his own eyes." "Humph, who asked him to speak so fast?" The more the driver looked at the two people in the back seat, the stranger he felt. Why was there something wrong with young master and Miss Xi's state and the atmosphere between them? He subconsciously cast a suspicious look at Assistant Cheng next to him. "What's going on?" Cheng Feng didn't say a word and replied with his eyes. "You ask me, but who should I ask? Anyway, ever since Miss Ningxi was rescued, the atmosphere between the two of them had been strange. He suspected that a friend in need was a friend indeed. However, he still needed to observe whether it was true or not. After all, when they were in Dib, they were pretending to be husband and wife. Who knew if those ambiguous and loving expressions were real or fake? Just as Cheng Feng was thinking about this, in the back seat, Lu Tingxiao suddenly leaned over and kissed Ningxi. The driver, who was driving, saw the scene in the back seat through the rearview mirror. His palms slipped and he almost broke the steering wheel. "Boss, I'm driving. Don't suddenly scare me." Cheng Feng, on the other hand, was dumbstruck. There was only one thought left in his mind. Very good, there was no need to observe anymore. This meant that they were definitely going to be together. With the boss's calmness, if the other party hadn't already fallen in love with him, he would never have made such a rash move. Oh my God. Was he seeing things? Am I dreaming? Boss finally saw the light of day after the clouds parted. Why did he feel happier than when he was in love? Tears. In the back seat, Ningxi, who was suddenly kissed, was as shocked as the driver and Cheng Feng in front of her. She hurriedly pushed the man away, and no matter how calm she was, her old face couldn't help but turn red. "Hey, what are you doing?" In broad daylight. Most importantly, there were other people in front of them. Lu Tingxiao looked at her with a nonchalant expression and replied calmly, "You were very cute just now. I couldn't help myself." "Ningxi, it's my fault again. Didn't she say that she wanted to scare Lu Jingli to death? What was cute about her that made people unable to help themselves? She could even be seduced like this. Really, she couldn't understand the Demon King at all." Chapter 678. In front, for the sake of safety, the driver consciously closed the back seat's shade. Ningxi puffed up her cheeks, looking angry. She had every reason to suspect that Lu Tingxiao was taking revenge on her because she had said that it was 99% for Xiao Bao. Looking at the girl's lively expression, Lu Tingxiao's gaze gradually deepened, like a bottomless whirlpool, captivating one's mind. He couldn't help but look at her and get close to her. It was because he didn't feel safe. After getting out of the car, Lu Tingxiao sent her to the condominium. "Rest well at home for the next few days. Don't run around," Lu Tingxiao said sternly. Ningxi nodded obediently. "Of course, with my legs, I can't run away even if I want to." Lu Tingxiao looked at her suspiciously. He was sure that even if both her legs were shot, they wouldn't be able to stop her from skipping around. Ningxi knew that she had too many bad records, so she coughed lightly. "Really, I promise I won't run around. I promise." After reassuring her, Lu Tingxiao reluctantly believed her. "Then I'll be leaving." "Hey, leaving so soon? It's still quite early. Don't you want to come in and have a cup of tea before leaving?" Ningxi said subconsciously. However, the man's expression suddenly became dangerous. "Do you know what this means to a man?" Ningxi was speechless and her mouth twitched. "Damn. What are you thinking? I just want you to come in and have a cup of tea. That's what it means. It's not like I'm inviting you to do that." "Lu Tingxiao, why are you so dirty now?" Lu Tingxiao held her waist and kissed her lips and tongue roughly, as if he wanted to transmit all his deeply buried emotions to her through this kiss. "I've been infected by you." "Ningxi. It's my fault again. Also, why did the devil start kissing her without saying a word?" After leaving Pearl River Imperial View, Lu Tingxiao didn't go home immediately. Instead, he went to the riverside. "Boss, aren't you going home?" Cheng Feng asked hesitantly. Even though he had already gotten what he wanted, why did he feel that the boss was still troubled? Millimeter. Under the cold wind, Lu Tingxiao lit a cigarette, his tone indifferent. Cheng Feng didn't probe further and could only leave. It was obvious that Lu Tingxiao wanted to be alone for a while. He had at least this much insight. Hence, Cheng Feng and the driver took a taxi and left first. When they were halfway there, the driver's phone rang. It was Lu Jingli. "Hey, second young master, where's my brother? Did you get it?" On the other end of the phone, Lu Jingli's tone sounded a little awkward. "Yes, I've already picked up second young master. What can I do for you?" "Then why isn't he back yet?" It seemed that Lu Jingli was already waiting at home. "Oh, young master hasn't gone home yet. He sent Miss Ningxi home first and then went to the riverside alone." The driver answered truthfully. "What? My brother wants to jump into the river." Without waiting for the driver to speak, Lu Jingli roared and hung up the phone. The driver's eardrums trembled from the roar, and he looked confused. When did I say that young master was going to jump into the river? I didn't say anything, did I? I'm talking about the riverside. How did he understand it to such an extent?" The corner of Cheng Feng's mouth twitched. Second young master's thinking has always been different from ordinary people. Chapter 679. After the call with the driver, Lu Jingli sped all the way to the riverbank that Lu Tingxiao often went to when he was in a bad mood. "Oh brother, Qiao Do Sak, don't do anything stupid. You still have me." After seeing the familiar figure on the riverbank, Lu Jingli immediately ran over and pounced on Lu Tingxiao from behind, trying to push him down. Lu Tingxiao was keenly aware that there was someone behind him, so he subconsciously dodged to the side. However, he saw a familiar figure out of the corner of his eye, so he hurriedly reached out to the back of Lu Jingli's collar and pulled him back before he fell into the river. Lu Tingxiao hurriedly snuffed out the cigarette in his hand and frowned slightly. "What are you doing?" Lu Jingli almost jumped into the river himself. He patted his chest in shock and said anxiously, "Of course I'm stopping you from jumping into the river." Lu Tingxiao was silent for a few seconds before he said word by word, "Who told you that I was going to jump into the river?" "The driver said it. He said that you were going to jump into the river." "It doesn't matter who said it. Anyway, brother, don't do anything stupid." Lu Tingxiao sighed helplessly. How could the chauffeur have said that? His imagination must have been overthinking things again. The world is so big and there are so many hot girls. There must be one that suits you. You can't lose hope in life just because you broke up once. Lu Jingli's mouth was dry from trying to persuade him. "Who told you that I fell out of love?" Lu Tingxiao asked unhurriedly. "Xiao 1111 has already confessed to that guy. She must have succeeded." Lu Jingli's face was full of grief and indignation. Lu Tingxiao glanced at him and nodded. "Yes. Sure enough. I knew it. Brother, don't stop me. I'm going to chop that wild man into pieces and throw them into the river to feed the fish." Before he could finish, he heard Lu Tingxiao's faint voice in his ear, "The object of her confession is me." Lu Jingli choked on his saliva and coughed violently. "What? That wild man is you?" "Bah. No, the object of Xiao 1111's confession is you? Brother, have you suffered too much shock that you've lost your mind? Or are you kidding?" Lu Tingxiao glanced at him coldly. Clearly, he wasn't joking, and his mind wasn't deranged. Lu Jingli, on the other hand, felt that he was not far from being deranged. Lu Jingli was instantly enraged. He paced at least 49 times. "Bro, are you serious? Little 1111's confession target is really you? This was simply a fantasy and completely illogical. This is impossible, impossible, impossible. Why can't I understand this world anymore? Who am I? Where am I? What's my name?" Lu Tingxiao stood in the river breeze and lit another cigarette. To be honest, after seeing Lu Jingli's reaction, he was a lot more comforted, because it turned out that Lu Jingli was already calm. Whether it was the reaction of the driver, Cheng Feng, or Lu Jingli, they were all the same, impossible. Lu Jingli muttered to himself for at least a few minutes before he finally recovered and regained some ability to think. No, since little 1111 is confessing to you, why do you still look like you've fallen out of love? Why do you still come here to feel the cold wind? Lu Tingxiao, you're too excited, calm down. Lu Jingli, ah. Chapter 680. Looking at Lu Jingli choking, Lu Tingxiao's lips curled up imperceptibly. His originally heavy mood seemed to ease a little. He really needed to sober up. Everything had happened so suddenly that he still had no sense of reality. He was afraid that when he woke up, he would find that it was a dream. He was even more afraid that she had just said those words out of a moment of emotion. He was afraid that she would regret it the moment she turned around. He was afraid that the flash in the pan would eventually be no match for the moonlight in her heart. The cruelest and most painful thing was not to never have it, but to lose it after having it. The happier and sweeter she was now, the more her heart felt like it was on fire. She had once introduced him to Gongshangzi, saying that he was her boss, friend, mentor, and talent scout. So now, who was he to her? She might have just said those words impulsively because she didn't want him to have any regrets after experiencing life and death. In that situation, her feelings for him might have been deliberately magnified under the crisis. And after saying that, what would happen next, and their future? She might not have thought about it at all, so this question turned over and over in his heart again and again, but in the end, he did not ask it. Like Pandora's ink box, even if he wanted to know what was inside, he did not dare to open it. So, you are not heartbroken, but in love? Lu Jingli repeatedly confirmed with him. Lu Tingxiao looked at the setting sun on the river in the distance. Maybe. Why do you say maybe? Since the two of them are in love, isn't it a matter of course to enter into love? That's not right. There are actually quite a lot of relationships after seeing each other. It's not just love. For example, there is a short one-night stand, there is a one-night stand, there is a long-term one, and so on. Lu Jingli was obviously very knowledgeable about this, and he analyzed it in detail. Until he found that his brother's face was even colder than the river wind, he hurriedly stopped himself from speaking without thinking. Cough, cough, cough. In fact, this is also very easy to judge. After 1111 confessed to you, did you two do anything? No, Lu Tingxiao replied. However, that was because she was injured. If she had not been injured at that time, he was not sure what would have happened. Although it was within his expectations, Lu Jingli still sighed and comforted her. If there isn't, then we can basically rule out other possibilities. It must be a pure love relationship. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Jingli seemed to have thought of something. His face went blank, and he looked like he was doomed. It's over, it's over. Romantic relationships seem to be even scarier. How could I forget about that? Lu Jingli was so anxious that he scratched his ears and cheeks. According to my investigation, none of 1111's ex-boyfriends lasted more than a week. Most of them took 3 to 4 days. Even for a day. The one who lasted the longest seemed to be Jiang Mui, a whole week. The most terrifying thing was that little 1111 had never played the trick of rekindling old love. She was cruel to her ex-boyfriends, and there was no possibility of them getting back together. That guy wouldn't be the same as before, right? Lu Jingli hugged his head and howled. He hurriedly asked, "Brother, what day is it now? What day is it?" Lu Tingxiao's face darkened. The first day. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.